on this one as well, recording in two places at once. This is the beauty of technology. Everybody, so excited to introduce to you Jason Young. He is someone that I've connected with online through a group who are passionate, a group of people that are passionate about mitochondria, are passionate about light that heals, and passionate about getting back in touch with nature and doing the things by a foundation, the fundamentals that really make us healthy. And so Jason has an incredible story. Just so you know, he was a former athlete, but also you were also depressed. You had anxiety, suicidal thoughts, pre-diabetic. He was a gym owner and fitness nutrition guru at the time. So he was very lost, looking for answers. What he was doing with food and exercise wasn't working. And then he's now turned to a light guru. So after rediscovering the work from Jack Kruse in an interview on EMFs, he's now an author and the creator of the 34-day light challenge. That is so exciting. I want to do that. And then 47-day ketogenic diet challenge. That's really interesting. I think, keto is definitely a great way to go.
That's my life.
Was your life, but you shift. Yes. So we're gonna maybe, we're gonna challenge some topics there, but I'd love to hear the science behind it. And a 31-year veteran to the strength and fitness game. So if you are out there, if you're wanting to improve your performance in the gym, how can you use these light frequencies? So to rejuvenate, quicker recovery, reduce aging, slow down the aging process. We're going to talk about sunlight and blue light, cold exposure, DHA. We're going to play multiple videos at the same time.
Sorry, yeah, I'm tagging people.
Technologically excited for this, Jason. So really appreciate your time. And I'd love to just start off with your story and how you got involved with this awesome field of work.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys having me on. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. I would say I've been through probably 3 or 4 different lives, it seems to me. But how it started was, way back, it was basically I wanted to be Sylvester Stallone, so to speak. College was kind of where things really changed. So in high school, I graduated at 155 pounds. And then I started to go to school at Ohio State in Columbus, Ohio. And basically my major was theater, because I wanted to be an actor. And that's when I found like nutrition, how to eat to put on weight. And when I did that, I started following like the bodybuilding thing. So they told you to eat every 2 to 3 hours. I was eating 6 to 10 meals a day. My sophomore year of college, I went from 167 pounds to 207 in 5 months, drug-free. And then in an additional 2 months, I went to 222 pounds. And I still have the stretch marks to prove it. So it was absolutely crazy. But I was following just basically that bodybuilding type lifestyle and just eating low fat, low cholesterol, high protein, high carbohydrate. And looking back, I know I was super unhealthy. That's because, if you would have asked me then, I would have told you I looked like Arnold, but I was probably 25% body fat, and yeah. So, but that's when the things started to change for me. That's when the depression started, the thoughts of suicide, the anxiousness, and all that stuff. And then once I did graduate from college, then I basically, my goal was to become a strength and conditioning coach for like a college. So to do that, you've got to basically have your own graduate degree. So I picked a school in Pennsylvania, went there. I was in school for 3 days and decided I cannot do another day of school. So it was basically, because it took me 7 years to pass to graduate. Is basically I wanted to get into exercise science, but I could not pass the math and chemistry requirements to get into that. So I had to drop down to sports and leisure studies, which is just the lower level of it. So that's why, because it took me like 2 or 3 years to pass those 2 classes, math and chemistry. So it was just ridiculous. But school wasn't something for me. I mean, that's something we can talk about another day, but my feelings on education and whatnot, because I really didn't learn anything in regards to training people in those 7 years. That's another story. So basically, once I did go to the graduate school, I decided school's not for me. I'm going to go back home, open my own gym, and basically become a strength coach that way. So when I did, I moved back home, moved back in with my mom, and then that's when the things really started going bad. So really bad depression, really bad anxiety, thoughts of suicide. I was anywhere between 222 pounds, 235 pounds. I had to find a job to basically pay the bills. The job I got was in collections, which, if you've ever been in collections, is just a really bad experience, because basically you call people, say you owe money, people yell back at you, and it just is not a good atmosphere. So I did that for about 18 months, and then I decided I wanted to open up my own gym, because I knew I needed to get out of that situation. Otherwise, I was going to basically kill myself. So obviously, I didn't want that. I didn't have enough money to afford like health insurance and all that stuff. So I feel I was lucky in that regards, because otherwise I would have went to a doctor, got like put on Xanax or whatever the depression meds or anxiety meds, and basically it would have been a spiraling loop. But eventually I did get myself out of that funk. A lot of books, a lot of reading. So the Secret and Tony Robbins books were the ones that really pulled me out of that funk, and got me on the path to basically, I found a business coach, and he helped me. In 2007, I opened up my boot camp program, and then basically we started just in a park in the middle of summer, and that grew. So in winter in Ohio, you got to move indoors. So I found a martial arts studio, opened that place up, and then it grew and grew from there. Eventually I opened up a youth program, and that was in 2011. And then it was basically, I was just focused on the fitness, focused on the nutrition, and yeah, and then it just kept going and kept going, because the business kept growing. So my time to look elsewhere and other places outside of that health realm, besides fitness and nutrition, was kind of limited. So, but my journey in terms of that, so I found paleo pretty soon after I opened my gym. So before I opened my gym, I was doing like the standard American diet, oatmeal for breakfast, bananas and orange juice and yogurt and all that stuff. And then I found paleo probably in 2010. And that's when I realized that I felt the best I ever felt. But I still was kind of chubby, still kind of overweight, and I just could not lose the weight. Then 2013 came. I basically found a nutrition program where you were basically cleansing. 30 days, I lost like 3.1% body fat, lost 16 pounds. And then basically I felt comfortable talking to people about nutrition, because before that I wasn't really comfortable talking to people about nutrition, because I was like pudgy and overweight. So really, I focused on the training and let other people do the nutrition part. But then once I found that, I started introducing my clients to that, talking more about nutrition, all that stuff. So really built up my confidence. The following year, 2014, just right before my daughter was born, I started the ketogenic diet, and that's when things really took off again. That was about the time also I found Jack Kruse for the first time, but I didn't stick with his plan, his message, because it was back then I don't know, I had a different mindset. I was gung-ho on the nutrition and just found the keto and all that stuff. I think I tried the cold stuff, and that's what kind of scared me away from it, because I hate the cold. Still hate it, but I engage in it as much as I can. So it's just like a mental barrier that you just got to beat and beat and beat. So it's like a dead horse. You just got to keep beating it. So then I stopped following Jack Kruse and basically did the ketogenic diet stuff for a few years. And then 2018, I found Jack Kruse again. It was actually, I was doing some research on EMFs, and Nick Pinal, the EMF guy, his book was the non-tinfoil guide for EMFs. So I read that, and then I saw an interview with Jack on it, and then it was just, from there, it's just been, I've been following Jack's work, and basically it's kind of like learning from a fire hose. So, I mean, he's got so much. I've probably been through like just 15 to 20% of his blogs, but it's just mind blowing what he's implementing and that stuff. But last year I closed my physical gym, and basically I'm moving more into teaching people about the light and how it affects us. So the good light, the sun, and the bad light, the blue lights and the fluorescent lights and all that stuff. So
your story is so dynamic, and I'm sure a lot of people can actually relate to what you've gone through, and now you're connecting the dots and actually helping other people with that as well. So I'm so curious to pick your brain around a lot of this. My first question is, what's with the red light and the I know what it is, but tell everyone why you've got a red light and all these glasses, and it's actually really hard to see you.
So I'm in my daughter's and son's playroom. So they're downstairs doing their thing, but we actually have so the lights behind me, they don't work. So we turned the power off on all of our upstairs. So there's no room that has power upstairs. So I have to actually take an extension cord downstairs to have this light. But basically, we don't want it, especially after sunset, you don't want any like blue spectrum, blue light shining at you, especially on your eyes. And the eyes and skin are the most important to block. So these are the blue blockers from Raw Optics. So anytime I'm on a computer or TV or anything like that, I was grocery shopping earlier, so anytime I will put these blue blockers on, and basically it cuts out all the blue spectrum and the green spectrum, because basically the worst thing that blue light does is it destroys our melatonin. And most people know melatonin as the hormone of darkness, the sleep hormone. It helps us sleep and all that stuff. But but the one thing most people don't know is that melatonin is actually made in morning sunlight. If I had like a blue light on and I didn't have my blue blockers on, basically my melatonin would be getting trashed, and my sleep would get trashed, and anything that destroys your sleep will eventually destroy the human being. It starts off just, you have energy problems, you need a bunch of caffeine and all that stuff, but that will lead to more inflammation, which will lead to disease presentation, and depending on where the disease is, organ failure and possibly death. But so that's why I have the red light. So it's just an infrared heat lamp, basically. But basically we keep these kind of lights, amber lights, red incandescents. Those are the ones that we really have around the house at night.
That's awesome. And do your kids, like when they have friends come over and sleep over or anything like that, how do they feel? You know, like the friends that actually come over, do they like freak out a little bit, or how do they feel about it?
No, my daughter is 6. We've got the lockdown thing going on, so she hasn't had too many friends over. But when they come over, basically, her best friend is my wife's boss, so she knows the situation. She's been over quite a few times, so she knows the light situation and all of that. She thinks it's weird, but hey, I always say if you are healthy in this modern day,
You're always considered weird.
You're going to be considered weird.
Yeah.
So.
I think actually weird is the best way to be. I couldn't imagine living a normal life.
Yeah.
I would prefer a foundational life.
Yeah. Normal is fat and sick, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of the people here within our community, they understand that frequencies can either heal our body, or some frequencies can, I guess, kill and cause havoc to our body. So what is it about light that can heal our body? Because, you know, obviously going through that story that you mentioned with depression and type pre-diabetic, how was light actually how did that have a part to play in the healing of what you were going through?
Well, light, so the right types of light is, so health or disease, it starts in the eye. Basically, behind our retina, we have what is known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So if you think, well, I always say circadian biology is the number one thing for our health. And the suprachiasmatic nucleus is basically a clock. So circadian biology is basically, it's a circadian rhythm. So we live off of a 24-hour clock, so to speak. And the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, is the grandfather clock, if you think of it that way. It's the master clock. So it's got to run just fractions of a second faster than all the other clocks in our body. So it said we have anywhere between 19,000 to 25,000 genes. And in front of each of those genes is a peripheral clock. And basically, if the clocks start running off or they start slowing down, depending on where that clock is slowing down, so say it's your thyroid that's running off, then you're going to be getting some thyroid issues. You might get Hashimoto's or hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism. And yeah, so we want to basically synchronize our clocks. And the best way to do that is through morning sunlight. So I always say the most important, the sun changes throughout the day, but the most important time to get sun is the sunrise, because that's when the sun has the most blue light present. So blue light is good as long as it is from the sun, because when it's from the sun, it's got all those other spectrums. So it's got the red and the blue and the orange and all the colors in there. But on sunrise, it's got the most blue, and it's always got red light present there. So basically, when our suprachiasmatic nucleus sees that, it basically sends a message back to our anterior pituitary gland to turn on like a hormone factory, but the correct hormone factory. So if you just wake up and the first thing you see is your alarm clock or your phone, which you don't have a filter on, basically that's going to tell your brain, to tell your SCN to turn on the wrong hormones. So basically cortisol's going to spike unnaturally. I mean, it's supposed to spike to wake us up, but it's going to spike the wrong way because it's not getting the right light signal to basically do the things that we need to do. So that sunrise will basically turn on the correct hormone factory. And then the second most important time to get that morning sun is basically right after sunrise. So when sunrise happens, there's no UV light. So basically you can stare right at that sun because there's no UV. You can do the same thing at sunset. But then the first UV light that will show up is what's known as UVA. And once UVA shows up, that's when we start making a whole bunch of different things. So that's when melatonin, dopamine, beta endorphins. So basic beta endorphins are basically an opiate. So it's basically nature's way of telling us we're supposed to be addicted to the sun. We're supposed to be out for the sun periodically throughout the day. But however, most modern day lives, they're set up where they miss the sunrise. They go in the building, go into work, they're in their car for that morning sun, and then they're basically inside all day. So that frequency on the eyes, and it's very important not to have any sunglasses or have any contacts or the eyes should be naked, and you should be as naked as possible because the skin also has receptors, which is known as melanopsin. So that's basically our blue light antenna. So we want to get that sun blue light on those melanopsin receptors, but we don't want to get that fake artificial light because that will screw us all up, which we don't want.
That's really interesting. And speaking about cortisol, I have had this happen to me twice now throughout my life. I had one of the times was the opposite effect. I had really extremely high cortisol level and I could not gain weight, right? The second time was actually recently. I had super high cortisol again. I had my pancreas wasn't functioning correctly and neither was my liver. So obviously they weren't communicating correctly. They couldn't process sugar, which I don't even eat sugar. I used to eat a more ketogenic based lifestyle, still try to eat a more low carb, high fat lifestyle as much as possible. What I found with the high cortisol, I actually gained 10 kilos in like a month and a half to 2 months. It was extremely rapid. So then we did a 5-day full reset. So in that 5 days, we did a 5-day fast, water-based fast. I'm just having your greens powders and more supplementary. I mean by supplementary, like clay and all those things to help flush out the toxins.
Chelators to pull some toxins out.
Yeah, fossil shell,
good water, and
different, kangan-based water and things like that. So then we also did morning-based sunrise walks. So once I started doing the morning sunrise walks and the grounding, I continued that when we came home, and now it's been like what, a month?
It's over a month, yeah.
And I haven't weighed myself, but if you look, like Zac would be able to say, if you saw where I was 4 weeks ago, and then if you look at me now, I'm completely back to where I was. I haven't weighed myself, like I said, but all I've done differently, I can feel it, you can see it. I've become a lot more leaner, and my cheekbones are sticking out more, things like that, my abs as well. So it's kind of gotten to that point where, okay, the only things I started to do differently was obviously doing the 5-day reset, but then also going for those morning walks, grounding myself, walking along the beach every morning. I know not everyone has access to the beach, but that was my routine. And then I go and do a gym workout. But when I was like my most leanest, or when I was in my most heavy ketogenic for my life, I was training three hours a day, which is a little bit excessive. I do have that. I can get too obsessed with training. And that's my addiction, is training. And, I was running 11Ks every day. I was going to the doing boxing for 1 hour a day and then doing weight-based training for an hour. So now I'm just doing it more casually, doing a bit of skipping.
But yeah, you haven't been
fun.
training that hard.
Yeah, not really that hard, and now it's just dropped off. Does that, so the effects of the cortisol and the natural light, does that have impact on your weight as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. Cortisol is, I mean, if you don't get control of that, basically cortisol and melatonin are basically opposite ends of the spectrum. So cortisol is supposed to spike at the beginning of the day, and melatonin is supposed to be low, and then basically the cortisol drops as we get closer to nighttime and sleep, and then melatonin raises. But basically, yeah, cortisol can do some weird things to you. Because I mean, obviously, it's a hormone. People talk badly about cortisol and saying it's like all that stuff, but I mean, it's a natural hormone inside of us, so we need it, but we need it to be expressed at the right time and the right amount. And obviously, if we don't get the right types of light, if we get like unnatural blue light, then it's not gonna be a natural production. Things are gonna go a little bit haywire, and that's gonna mess up with sleep. And if you don't sleep correctly, you're not going to repair the body, repair the mitochondria, which is basically the energy powerhouse of the cell. So if the mitochondria is not working properly, then all types of things will be chaotic. So weight gain, I mean, inflammation, diabetes, autoimmunity, all that stuff will raise.
You just touched on something there, which is mitochondria. Not everyone, I guess, listening to this podcast would actually understand what mitochondria is. Do you mind just doing like a quick little 30-second, this is what it is?
Yeah. Yeah. So the mitochondria, you basically want to think of like the engine of your car. So it's like, is it more important to, so basically we want to have like a Ferrari engine. We don't want to have like a Honda Civic or a Ford Escort kind of engine. But so think of your mitochondria as like the engine of your car. And if you're, so you probably all had like the fuel light come on. But when the engine light comes on, people get a little bit more worried. It's like, oh man, what's going on? How much is this going to cost me? Fuel light comes on, it's like, no big deal, just pull into the gas station. But when the engine, when the mitochondria is broken, does it really matter if you're putting in the premium gasoline or the organic food? And the answer is no, because food cannot fix broken mitochondria. And Dr. Doug Wallace, who is like the leading researcher on mitochondria, he says that he predicts there's like anywhere between 80 to 90% of all modern man diseases that we see today are of mitochondrial nature, or a mitochondrial disease, and not, because we have two genomes. Most people know the nuclear, the DNA genome, but there's also the mitochondrial genome. And that's the one where we see all the obesity and Alzheimer's and osteoporosis and all these diseases that we're seeing in the world. Yeah.
That's really important to pinpoint or remind people or tell people that we have two genomes. We have the double helix DNA, but we also have mitochondrial DNA. And so I guess the double helix DNA that's from our parents, our genes, but then we have this kind of DNA that is affected by mitochondria, affected by EMFs, or affected by electricity or light, that's actually running the health of everything in our body that we're just not taught. So I'd love to know what is I guess hurting or damaging our mitochondria, and then also what are some things we can do to actually support and treat our mitochondria to heal it in the quickest time possible.
Okay. Well, the things that hurt it the most is you can also think of your mitochondria as basically like an environmental sensor, but it's sensing things on a second by second basis. So the things that hurt it the most would be like the fake unnatural lights, the Wi-Fi, smart meters, especially so these are what's known as non-native EMF. I like to call them electro pollution, as everybody understands what pollution is, and everybody knows pollution is bad. So just put that electro in there, and then people can kind of figure it out that it's not that good, especially with non-native EMF. Distance is more your friend. So if you're where you have your bed set up, so I used to have my daughter's and actually my son's bed were against the wall, but the smart meter was on that side of the wall. So I moved their bed, I got a smart meter cover, and basically took care of that. And then I turned the power off in the room. But those kind of things, so non-native EMF, blue light, which is a form of electropollution, those are the things that are going to damage the mitochondria the most. And then people are living toxic lifestyles, so they're eating bad food under blue light, under the Wi-Fi, under all that stuff. They've got their phone on 24/7 in their pocket. They sleep with it. It's on their belly when they're texting or checking Facebook or whatever they're doing. Those are the things that are really going to smash and destroy the mitochondria. And the things you want to do to start to make it better is, I always say, it's sunrise. You've got to see the sunrise basically for the rest of your life every single day. Yeah, I mean, if somebody says that's not possible, then it's like, how bad do you want it, or where are you in your disease process? Some people that like are young, because when we're younger, basically inside our mitochondria, we've got what's known as respiratory proteins, and the more they stretch out, well, the closer the distance between them is known as percent heteroplasmy. So the more they stretch out, the higher your percent heteroplasmy goes. And we don't, so basically if it starts getting up to 60, 70, 80%, you're kind of on your way out. But the thing is, we can stop the progress of it, and we can actually shrink it down, which we want to do. But so the morning sunrise, when we set those hormones off correctly, that's going to be the thing that jumpstarts everything. Because my clients and people that I've talked to, sunrise is the most important thing. And if they skip it, they basically, after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of doing it, if you miss it, you feel it and you notice it. You notice it in your energy and all that stuff. So seeing that would be number one. And the number one thing I tell people to eat, especially where I'm at now in the winter, it's even more important, is DHA, which is basically the seafood, omega-3 fatty acid. So sunrise, DHA, I do tell people to get cold as much as possible, because that's going to help heal the mitochondria as well. I call mitochondria basically it's your hydrogen heat engine. It's basically your winter coat. So if you're cold all the time, and basically you know that your mitochondria isn't working very well. So
that's really interesting to say that, because I do have like another sort of question, and because your mitochondria also helps with your circadian rhythms, I'm gathering that that's where it can also help with that.
Good question.
Yeah. That could be a question as well. But can you actually train your circadian rhythm, or is it a more I can't even say that word.
So yeah, what she's saying is our are our genetics presetting and setting out our circadian rhythm, or is the environment changing our circadian rhythm? So can you change your circadian rhythm, or is it set in from birth based on our genetics?
Thank you.
Yes, but basically, I mean, all living things pretty much have the same circadian rhythm, because the sun has been rising and setting for about 4.6 billion years. So some people will always say, hey, I'm a night owl. I work best from 12 to 2 or 12 to 4, and I like to sleep in and that kind of stuff. Circadian biology just won the Nobel Prize in 2017. So that's huge, but circadian rhythm and circadian biology has been going on for billions of years. We can't really change the fact that everything runs off a clock. So when we should wake up, when our body temperature is the lowest, when it's the highest, our blood pressure is the highest in the morning. We're supposed to poop right after, or sometime in the morning after we see that morning sunrise. Our protein synthesis is highest somewhere around 3 to 5 p.m. That's also where our oxygen tension is the highest. So that's the best time to work out, and then get a good post-workout meal after that. So we can't really change the 24-hour clock. So that's basically something that's kind of set in stone. We can. So you talked about genetics, but mostly it's what's known as epigenetics. So basically, how we live our life, and what environment we put our genes in, what is going to determine what gets turned on and what stays off. So if we are more in the sun and we're eating the right stuff, and we're doing the cold exposure, we're staying away from non-native EMF, we're going to keep the diseases at bay. So let's say cancer is a big one. So nobody wants to get diagnosed with cancer. But a lot of people, especially doctors and researchers, all they're doing is studying the genetic genome. But cancer is a epigenetic disease. So I don't know if you're familiar, but in 1971, President Richard Nixon, he declared the war on cancer. And every decade since then, cancer has grown and grown, and it's still growing. So it's all about epigenetics and the environment that we put ourselves in that's going to determine what genes get turned on and what genes stay off, basically.
Oh, okay. So let's say, for example, you know how you've got like those readers, like I think one's called Whoop, you've got the Aura Ring and things like that. If some people are finding that reading is saying your optimum time for recovery is still between 10 and 7 a.m., would that mean do you think that those readings come out quite correct, or do you have your own opinion on utilizing something like a tool like that?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those things, especially if they're on while you sleep. I believe that sleep it's pretty much the most important thing that we do. I mean, we do it 7 to 9 hours a day. It's supposed to recover us, recover the mitochondria and all that stuff. So any kind of external signal is going to interrupt that. I would say if you're using that to track your sleep, I mean, you should be so in tune with your body that you know when you got a good night's sleep and when you got a crappy night's sleep. But if it's saying something like you should work out or recover at this time, I don't put too much stock in those type of things, because usually if it's like a Fitbit or a Apple Watch, it's basically around this part of the body, which is known as the radiator of the body, because basically when you do have EMF around your body, which is why I always tell people, don't have your phone on your body, not on airplane mode. Never put your phone on your head when you're talking on it, because what it does is it basically irradiates the blood, and when it's here, basically it goes here and then back to the heart and then all over the body. So basically you now have irradiated blood moving through the body, which is not a good thing. I just posted a post on Facebook talking about the different things. So they use like the connected earbuds that you're wearing. Also did the Apple Watch or something similar to the Apple Watch, and basically showed the different frequencies that were being exposed the most. So it was, I mean, it wasn't like where the thing was obviously where the most was, but basically the whole body was being affected in some way or another.
If somebody then were to like wear this 24/7, what would be the major impacts? You know, like the Whoops or the Aura Ring or something like that. What is the major impacts? Because I know so many people that have
Apple Watches, like everyone
wears them. Yeah, like even
we've
my
got our
mom's
phones
got
in our
one.
pocket all the time as well.
Yeah, but we do tend to put our phone. Well, we put our phones on flight mode when we have it on us.
Okay.
But yeah, what would be long-term side effects to something like that?
Basically it goes back to the epigenetics. I mean, things are going to get turned on. I mean, we all have cancer cells in us. It's just a matter of whether or not we live a certain way long enough for those cancer cells to basically form up and form that tumor, which we don't want. So non-native EMF is going to basically, the big thing is it dehydrates the mitochondria, causes calcium efflux to happen. So calcium is supposed to be very, very regulated, and when it's not, then bad things happen. So you're going to age prematurely. Those, like I talked about, the percent heteroplasmy is going to start to rise a lot faster. It's why we're actually seeing all these kids now have diseases that used to be for 50, 60, 70-year-olds. Now they're brought down to 30, 40-year-olds, and kids being born today are being born with, instead of a percent heteroplasmy of 0, they're being born with 10%, 20%, some of them 30%. A lot of them have genetic diseases. So genetic diseases are starting to skyrocket as well. So it's crazy.
That's actually interesting that you say that, because 3 very close people to me, all under the age of 18. At 18, one of my friends were also out surfing over at South Stratty. He had a heart attack. One of my best girlfriends got, actually both of my best girlfriends pretty much around about the same time. One got activated cancer cells. The other one got cancer and had to go through, she had Hodgkin's lymphoma 2, stage 2, and had to go through chemo and everything else. But when I do look back, you know, that was the time when we were age 13, you know, when I think it was age 13 or 14 when the first iPhone came out. You know, so we're exposed for about 2 years. But even like Hodgkin's lymphoma was extremely rare for somebody at that age to get, and for her to get that was just next level. And then the same with obviously at 18 having a heart attack, which is again unheard of. And now he's got to be so careful about what he does within his life, which is just nuts.
Yeah. Brain cancer is one of the ones that's really taken off, because now I think the average age in America that a child receives a cell phone or a smartphone is like the age of 8. And basically they're on that all day. We've got the Air pods that they basically, that's one of the worst, because it's connected Bluetooth, it's connected Wi-Fi, it's connected cellular signals. So you got 3 signals basically, and the way they fit is they're closer into the brain. So yeah, I always say that's like, you give your child AirPods, that's a form of child abuse.
Yeah.
So
I like that. That's actually a good point. But then so you're saying like all these different things, like obviously technology, Wi-Fi, whatnot. So I'm an entrepreneur myself as well, and I own a fintech-based product which allows people to micro-invest into Bitcoin. I've currently stepped down from there, but when I think of then my team, and when I was in that environment of technology and stuff, it was a 24-hour, it still is a 24-hour business. We're constantly having to be near our computers, near Wi-Fi. What then could we do to improve our team's space? Because obviously I want my team, I tried getting them into meditation, yoga, like trying to take them out for, that sounds really bad, take them out for walks.
Walkies.
Get them all to come out for a walk during lunch break, because being coders and stuff, obviously, you know, they're stuck into their computer. So I try and bring more life, because I could like I'm very sensitive to people's energy, and I can feel what goes on internally. So I'd kind of like bring some of my yoga practices into that, and what I knew about the health industry into it. So anyone that's got a team, or even like, you know, who work from home, how could they make their home a bit more safe, or make their team a bit more safer?
Or kids.
Well, the best.
Or kids, yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the best things you can do is instead of Wi-Fi, plug in using Ethernet. So that's what, I mean, we have the probably 99.5% of the time we're plugged into Ethernet. The only time we really use Wi-Fi is if we need to download like podcasts, or my wife needs to download her shows. So, but switching over to Ethernet is one of the easiest things to do, because that Wi-Fi signal is going to constantly be dehydrating you. Another thing I have is a grounding cord. I got it from lessemf.com. It's basically it's a USB. You just plug it into the USB, and then plug it in somewhere to an outlet, and it cuts down the electric field like magic. So it's pretty good there. And one thing I would recommend, I don't know if your coders actually need to see color, but on my computer I have Iris, which is it's a blue light blocking software, and basically I keep it on 0 all day long. So
I'm a designer, right? So I'm UX UI. That's my background. Graphic designer, branding. It is, Zach always turns it on my laptop, and I cannot do my job half the time, because obviously all of that I do is around color. So like, you know, it's matching color, making sure everything's in alignment, and there's consistency. So like for someone like me, it's an absolute nightmare, but I know it's really good for you to be able to obviously utilize that, but it's also somewhat impossible to some degree.
Yeah. The raw optics, they make a day blue blocker, so you can still see some of the colors, and yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That is something that I've started to use though now. We actually went up and saw a good mate of ours up in Noosa, so it's north of Brizzy and Goldie. And yeah, that was one of the things that he gave me. I helped him store up all of his stock that he had, and he gave me a free pair. He's like, you need this.
Same lenses, the raw optics. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So, what I think is really important, I'm really curious to know about is, so we have this environment at home. We have the lights in our kitchen, our bedrooms, the bathroom, at work. We're exposed to all these fake lights. We've then got, you know, this understanding that we need to get back in touch with nature, and we, you know, the morning, that sun is really important. To not be afraid of the sun, because the sun's there. If the sun gave us cancer, then leaves would have cancer, or dogs would have you know, animals would have cancer. So,
yeah. And we don't need the sunblock for it.
You know, the sunblock is even more chemicals and blocking out different spectrums of the light. So just from your understanding, like what would be the ultimate day to really get back in touch with your circadian rhythm, like best morning routine, best lunch, best evening? How do you really kind of get back into that sync with rhythm of nature? And then how do we then utilize, I guess, training? I want to look at exercise and how do we get the most out of our training, you know, knowing that when we wear shoes, we're disconnecting from the earth. When we're in the gym, they're under fake light. So, you know, what's like an overall kind of routine for anybody to get back into this circadian rhythm? And then how does an athlete, I guess, kind of utilize that knowledge and to best get the results
I
in the gym
might
too?
just add to that also, how long, if you were to try and retrain your circadian rhythm, how long does that generally take?
Okay. Well, the one thing with the circadian rhythm and the sun in the morning is haven't talked about it yet, but it's the hormone leptin. So that's our master hormone. And basically the way I explain it, the easiest way is basically think of leptin as like the accountant of the energy status in your body. So it basically wants to use fat primarily because we have unlimited supply of it, even if you're very low in body fat. So in training your leptin, so if you're basically 20 pounds or more overweight, you're considered leptin resistant. If you don't have any energy, you are probably leptin resistant. You can even find hard charging athletes who could possibly be leptin resistant. So the one thing you want to do to basically get your leptin back and get back to leptin sensitive is you want to see that sunrise, and then within 30 minutes of seeing that sunrise, you want to eat what Jack Kruse calls the big ass breakfast, or the BAB. So basically it needs to be high protein, high fat, low carbohydrate. And the more overweight you are, the less carbohydrates you get. And obviously it depends on the season as well. So if it's winter, then carbohydrates, they don't grow. You're not supposed to be eating them anyway. But in the summer, you can typically eat more carbohydrates depending on several factors. So seeing that, and so seeing the sunrise, eating the big ass breakfast, and then trying to get out as much as you can in that AM sunlight. So AM sunlight will depend on where you are located, your latitude, what type of the season it is, but typically it's anywhere between 7 to 12, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then just being out periodically will help to reset that circadian rhythm, because your suprachiasmatic nucleus, even if it's raining, even if it's foggy, cloudy, snowy, it just looking in the direction of the sun or looking at the sky will actually tell the suprachiasmatic nucleus what time it is. So that's one thing we didn't talk about, was the different color temperatures. So when the sun rises, color temperature is around 1600, 1800 Kelvin. And when it sets, the temperature is around 16,000. So quite a big difference there. And around noon, so around 12 to 1 p.m., it's somewhere between 5,500.
I'm just really curious with that as well. So no fasting in the morning? Because, you know, I was a massive intermittent fasting kind of fanatic.
I love breakfast.
And, you know, and so
Dating.
likes eating breakfast, never ate breakfast. Interesting duality. But so you're saying no fasting, some fasting, depends on where you live, summer, winter.
Yeah, it depends. So if you are severely leptin resistant, then you want to have your fast between dinner time and breakfast. Because what I do, I typically won't eat breakfast until somewhere around 11 to 1 p.m. So it just depends. So but I mean, I'm leptin sensitive, I don't have a problem with leptin. So that was basically the Big S breakfast is basically if you are leptin resistant and you're trying to fix that.
Just to leptin resistant is that if you have if you've got a bit more weight to lose, have the breakfast in the morning. Is that, and then what about training on an empty stomach first thing in the morning?
And then eating after.
And then eating after that. Does it depend on the training? Because I'm sure, like what my understanding would be, not eating, training, your mitochondria is like, give me something, and then you're kind of smashing yourself in the gym, maybe having a coffee and not really hydrating. It's going to put even more cortisol, because fasting can also trigger more cortisol too. So yeah,
my thing with that, I mean, leptin resistant people versus leptin sensitive people, they've got to do things a different way. So it's like Dr. Cruz always talks about, he talks about context. Every person is going to have different situations because every person's environment is slightly different. So I know he talks about you can have identical twins that live one room, and one has a major mitochondrial disease and the other one is perfectly fine. It's all about that situation and the environment that they're in. I mean, I wake up all the time and do my workout first thing in the morning. It's when I prefer to actually do it, because if not, then I have to bring my 22-month-old son down there, and exercises have to change based on where he's running and whether he's jumping on daddy and all that stuff.
But I guess the difference would be, okay, yes, you are training at first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, but the difference is maybe your evening routine is more like this. You know, how many people have a red light and do this with their glasses? Like none. So I guess you're really supporting your mitochondria. And you know, I don't want to jump to too many topics, but your depression shifted, your pre-diabetic condition shifted. Did that take you 3 months, 6 months, a year with getting back in touch with this circadian rhythm? Did you start losing weight and the mindset shift in a short period of time or a long period of time?
I would say it was about a year and a half it took. So,
wow.
Okay, that makes okay. And sorry, I've totally interrupted there, but you were saying with the training and things like that. So if obviously context, but looking at, okay, so people out there, if you are, what your routine is now, if it is giving you the results, then don't change. But I guess if you're doing something and you're not getting the results that you want, then maybe looking at having the breakfast and then training or something, right? Like shifting it up, because when we get like, I know for so long we get kind of stuck in these new routines, but but even our body like needs to change depending on, I guess, the environment or the weather or whatever else is going on.
And the perfect example for that is Zac and myself. I used to eat breakfast, but I would never eat before I trained. And Zac used to never eat breakfast. And then we started dating, and then he started eating breakfast. And then that's because he was so stuck in his routine. But I was so stuck in my routine that if I had a smoothie, I was going to be sick at training or whatever. But now, like, Zac's gotten me into the habit of, you know, I go for my morning walk along the beach every morning, or most mornings, get the sunrise. And then when I get back, I'm actually quite a little bit peckish, but normally I'd just ignore that and go straight to gym.
Peckish is hungry in Australia?
Hungry. A bit hungry. And then Zac would just automatically make me a smoothie. And I would kind of like feel a little bit guilty having that before going to gym, because I'm like, oh no, because if I'm having that prior to going to gym, it's going to give me energy, but at the same time, I'm probably going to feel sick and I'm not going to be able to burn it off as much as if I had it after, like straight after. But I've been doing that, then having my workout, and then straight after that, having like bacon and eggs, and it's been working just fine. So I guess that's also like a new thing. And I'm having more energy when I'm at gym. It seems to be working.
Is it the food? Is it the sun? Is it the less blue light at nighttime? I think it's probably a combination.
It's definitely a combination, but it's just interesting to see the different patterns. So like, you know, it's always good to trial that out. And I think if you want to to test it for you, which ones work for you most. Continuing, I guess, then that walking or being in that sunlight in the morning and being in nature and grounding yourself. But then with the eating regimes, with intermittent fasting, like maybe give it a month, trial different ways of eating to find out which one works for you more. Like
I think give it 3 months, like to
even
really
that,
kind of, even a bit longer. I think when I first started this kind of sun diet that we call it, you know, the sun, it took me probably a week or 2 or 3 to really get into that balance of up with the sun, down with the sun. But when I was in that rhythm, I was, you know, no light at nighttime. I was very strict, and I stopped my phone, anything. I was in bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30 naturally, you know, and then I'd wake up before my alarm. Naturally, I go, okay, cool, sunrise. I would go, I'd get so excited for the sun. As you were saying, it's an opioid, you know, it's an addictive. The brain is designed to get addicted to the sun.
Kind of like a coffee.
It's like, it was my kind of hit. So I'd go to the beach to that, and I'd be home so early. I'm like, okay, what do I do now? But I had so much, like my anxiety disappeared. Literally, I felt bulletproof because I was doing TV presenting at the time, and I was so nervous. So I was like, I need to get on top of my health. That's when I just started learning about all the Jack Cruz and all this stuff. So it's amazing how good you feel, guys. Like if you're listening to this, try it out. Sunrises every day for the next month, 3 months even. And it will, you know, from what I've seen, it should be a lifelong habit. Grounding, get connected. But yeah, I'd love to get back into that routine that you're saying, ideally throughout the best time of the day. So we kind of went on a tangent.
Yeah, sorry.
No, well, that was just how it flows.
Yeah. So, so basically the routine, sunrise. If you are leptin sensitive, then you can skip that breakfast. You can intermittent fast, whatever. Then seeing that AM sun, which the time will vary where you live. So typically it's sometime between 7 to 12 p.m. And also during that time, UVB light will usually be present as well. So UVA will show up, then UVB. UVB is where we make the vitamin D. So a lot of people are low in vitamin D. So I always say it's very important to know what your D levels are. There's an app called D-Minder. I recommend everybody download it. Basically tells you exactly what time vitamin D will show up, what time it leaves. It'll tell you the what UV is currently present, whatever time it is, and it'll tell you based on your skin type, your skin color, how much vitamin D per minute you're actually making. So that's one of the very important things, because I mean, if you're low in vitamin D, your immune system's going to basically suck, and diseases are going to be able to take you out or actually kill you, as we're learning with the COVID and all that stuff. But yeah, being present out there, because the suprachiasmatic nucleus needs to see that, see the sky, see the sun, so it knows what time it is. So it basically keeps that circadian mechanism, circadian gear clock running on that 24-hour circuit, which is one thing why looking at the phone is so bad, because or looking at blue light is so bad, because basically it's got a color temperature of anywhere between 5,500 to 6,500 Kelvin, which is the equivalent to anywhere between 12 to 1 p.m. So if you're looking at that blue lit or blue light phone or your TV at 6 a.m., you're getting the suprachiasmatic nucleus is getting that signal. It's 12 p.m. And it's even worse on the opposite end. So if you're looking at it 9 p.m., 10 p.m., you're getting the signal. It's 12 p.m. It's not time to go to bed. It's time to get up and do stuff, all that stuff. And then as the day goes on, I'd say the third most important time to see the sun is the sunset, because that's going to basically calm everything down, and basically set the tone for the nighttime hormones to help us go to sleep. And then after that sun sets, then blue blockers come on, the red lights, amber lights come on, candles, whatever you want to use.
Salt lamps.
What's that?
Salt
yes,
lamps.
salt lamps. Yep, absolutely. And then it's bedtime, and yeah, so you typically want to be in bed, I say, by 11 p.m. because leptin is most active between 12 to 2 a.m., but you definitely want to be asleep before that period.
And just on this topic as well, like we do have a question that's just come in. It's from one of my best friends. She's actually #1 in Australia in her category for jiu-jitsu. So she's a professional fighter. She's also a personal trainer herself. So she's just starting to learn about, actually just from basically Zac, learn about like mitochondria and everything else. And one of the questions that she's got here, sorry, Zac, do you mind just pulling up her question?
Yeah.
Because she has to train like at nighttime, she has to train in the morning. She trains quite a lot, obviously, because being a professional athlete. And one of the times that she does train is at nighttime, and then she generally eats after. And I think her question was around, is it safe to generally train at nighttime, but also eating after, or no, what did she say? Just, should she not eat after, or would that be catabolic training at nighttime?
So if you train late, would you just not eat after training, or would that be catabolic? So, yeah.
Sorry, I just didn't have the question in front of me to properly ask you.
Yeah, it would depend on several factors. I mean, how late is she actually training? And then what time would she actually be eating? Because with leptin, and I've actually got 2 webinars on leptin. I can send you the link.
Yeah, perfect. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but basically, we want to finish our last meal 4 hours before bedtime. Because if we don't, then leptin won't be able to go into the brain, to go into the receptor to tell the energy status of the body. So when we sleep, that's the #1 time that we're actually burning fat. So if we eat say we eat at like 9 p.m. and our bedtime is 10 p.m., then basically when we eat, digestion is one of the biggest metabolic processes that we have. So a lot of the processes that we do have get shut down completely or just turned down a whole bunch in order for the digestion to occur. So yeah, it would depend. I would need to know like what time she's finishing training, what time she was eating and that stuff. Because I mean, sometimes if I work out early in the morning, so sometimes I'll finish my workout at 6:30, and I won't eat until 10:30. Basically, I've heard different opinions on that. I hear that like the bodybuilding community will say, "Oh no, you can't do that. You're gonna lose all this muscle and all this stuff, and it's catabolic and all that." But I've also heard that you'll get back into ketosis a lot faster, so you will start burning fat and all that stuff. And I mean, I've been doing that for probably 2 or 3 years now. I mean, I don't do it every time, but I do it a lot. And actually, I use a program called Wodify to track my strength numbers and everything. So 2019, I hit, I think 103 PRs. Last year, I got 200, and I'm on pace to beat 200 again. So I'm getting stronger every year, even though I'm getting older. And so go figure, something's working.
It's working. So I guess the challenge for some people is they get up early, they want to train early, but they go straight to the gym without seeing the sunrise, and then in the gym, I guess, until the end of the day, and then might train themselves at night, 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I guess it's context. You're saying it's independent. There's a few factors
we
there. Hey?
Need to test, and I mean, write things down. I mean, I would, whenever you are trying to implement something new, especially if it's light or something that doesn't go with conventional wisdom. You want to take notes on how you feel and how you performed and all that stuff. So, you know, you can go back and you can say, hey, this worked, this didn't work, and you can make little adjustments here and there. So you keep moving forward and progressing. So
one of the things that I really like to do is actually training outside in the sun. It's one of my favorite things to do, or just even outdoors, because we actually do have this really cool gym in Brisbane. I call it like the American style gym here in Australia. It's like, you know, the bodybuilding gym, Gold Gym in, I think it's, yeah. So it's like that, but like here. But one of my mates actually used to own it, and he just let it, like, some of the equipment was broken, but it was kind of just felt good that it was broken because you could fix it. It felt a bit more harder. But none of the lights really worked in there. It was a massive, big warehouse shed. You opened up the doors. We had training tires outside, so you could be in the sun. You could go do your deadlifts outside, but then you could also obviously train inside. And I think that was actually when I was at my strongest and most fittest self, was just doing that. Because I'd get up so early, I'd be there for sunrise. But not actually, again, I didn't know about light and things like that. So maybe also people training outside a bit more instead of always being inside and underneath the fake light, and maybe, you know, doing a run in the morning or doing something more energetic outside as opposed to indoors for morning exercise. Be better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I try to get at least part of my workout done outside, although last couple weeks there's been 8 inches of snow on the ground, so it's been kind of difficult. But
so I guess what I've been doing for sometimes we go to the gym, and so I'll put my hat on and I'll wear the blue blockers. So it's kind of like, you know, people think that I've got these weird red blue blocker thing on, but I guess
love them.
It's fine. I've noticed as I've gotten myself in this rhythm of more sun, less kind of fake tech and things like that at night, I'm needing to train less, and I'm just maintaining my results, which is really cool. I haven't been doing heavy weights or anything like that. But it definitely does work. I definitely see the difference. I'd love to just switch quickly to maybe a little bit of food, diet, ideal foods and things like this, and then maybe just wrap up on sharing a bit more about your 34-day light challenge and this 47-day keto challenge as well. And,
I'd like to do the keto challenge.
yeah, so I always say the number one nutrient that we need is DHA. I just did a webinar on it. Basically, it's DHA has showed up right around the Cambrian explosion, which was 600 million years ago. It showed up with oxygen. So oxygen needs DHA, DHA needs oxygen. So everybody knows oxygen is pretty important. I mean, we can fast for weeks or months. We can go approximately 7 days without water. We go 2 to 3 minutes without oxygen. We're pretty much brain dead. DHA. So eating your seafood. They say oysters is the number one source of DHA on the planet, and then shellfish, and then you've got the acronym SMASH for the different types of fish. So you got sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, and herring. So those are the highest DHA kind of fish. So you kind of want to stick with more of the smaller fish. The bigger fish have more of the toxins and all that stuff. But DHA, the number one thing to get. And then I'm talking about circadian nutrition all the time. So there in Australia, I know it's hot pretty much year round, but if you live somewhere where there's like seasons, where I live in the States, basically when the winter hits, you want to eat as local and as seasonal as possible. So nothing grows here in the winter. Basically the only vegetable I really eat during the winter is mushrooms and onions. I'll eat an occasional avocado. Seaweed I'll eat if I can get it. I haven't been to an Asian grocery store since the pandemic hit. So But that's usually one of my staples when I can get it. And then as it gets hotter, that's when you're supposed to eat more of the fruits, more of the vegetables, because usually all food grows via photosynthesis. And so if you're eating something, say I'm eating like a banana from Brazil, that banana grew with certain UV light and light signatures and all that stuff. So if I do eat that here, it's basically my mitochondria senses it and it's like, this doesn't grow here. What's going on? And it's kind of like a circadian mismatch. And the more mismatches you have, the more inflammation that creates, and the more it speeds the disease process up. So I talk about eat that circadian.
It's like a light bulb / mind-blowing moment just then. I never even thought about, because I always go to our local organic farms and things like that. We'll try to most of the time, because I always say to Zach, like, I hate going into our big grocery stores here. They kind of just make me feel dirty. It's the best way for me to explain it. And but I try and support them as much as possible. But I was more looking at it from a soil aspect. But like now that you've just explained it more from a light, and it's like the energy going in there, then that's the same energy that my body is needing, because that's being fed through our nutrition. So I never even thought about looking at it that way.
Yeah,
that was
blew my mind too.
Whoa, okay. And I think that's going to sum up a lot of answers.
Because a lot of our food is from overseas here in Australia.
Yeah.
You know, we shouldn't be having the same food all year round. We should be eating with the seasons.
Yeah, because we do get cold here, and like, you know, we do get a lot of the time, like our banana farms get destroyed here through cyclones. But then still people are trying to get bananas through those times. And yeah, just using a banana example because you did too. You know, it's kind of like a sign not to.
So I feel more comfortable eating bananas here in Queensland than I did in Sydney, because bananas come from Queensland.
I just have my perception about fruit ever since I did keto. So yeah, I'd love to go more into that, go into more of the ketosis or keto-based diet that you have.
I haven't really I created that the keto challenge in 2015. I've done several updates, but I haven't really had the time to put in the circadian nutrition type of style, because eating fruit now, I mean, when apples are in season, watermelons in season, it's one of the tastiest things that I can eat. I absolutely love that time of the year, because we're supposed to actually, during fall is when humans are actually supposed to be the fattest, and then we're supposed to be the leanest in winter. So we're supposed to be eating that fruit that's in season, so apples, pumpkins, squashes, so the higher types of fruits and vegetables. And then when winter hits, we're supposed to be hardcore keto, and then we lose all the body fat. So yeah.
Okay, wait. Can you say that again?
Wait, hold on. Can I just try and figure it out? Because sometimes I need to say it out loud. So when I was doing my heavy keto and I was my most leanest, etc., feeling great, and then my best friend was doing it at the exact same time, that was actually during our winter here. But then both of us like pivoted and started to gain a massive amount of weight during our summertime. We were like, what is going on? So is that kind of what happens? You should basically do it during the winter period, but then change more into like your seasonal food, which is your summer-based food, which would be like your colder foods, salads, your fish, and, you know, introducing fruits then.
Yeah, because with like fruits and stuff, so basically all food breaks down to electrons and protons. And basically in our mitochondria, we have something known as electron chain transport. So there's 5 different cytochromes that all food goes through to ultimately reduce to oxygen. So when we eat carbohydrates, it's supposed to enter in through cytochrome 1, and when we eat fat, it's supposed to enter through cytochrome 2. However, with fat, it's got way more electrons than the carbohydrates, so like the fruit. However, when you're eating in season, so fruit has a lot of deuterium, which is known as heavy water, which will cause you to gain weight and all that stuff. But the sun is the strongest in the summer, and the sun is actually the #1 depleter of deuterium. So when we eat fruit in the summer, we're supposed to be outside, and the sun is supposed to help us deplete it, and it's supposed to help run those electrons through the electron chain transport. However, if we're eating that out of season, cold is also something that depletes the deuterium, but a lot of people, they won't go out when, like today it was 25 degrees. People aren't going to go out and sit in a cold tub like I do, but so when you're eating deuterium in the winter, you're going to add fat, and it's going to slow the electron chain transport down, and it's going to start to cause inflammation and reactive oxygen species, all these free radicals and all that stuff. So yeah, so it's pretty important to stick with the sunlight and eat more seasonal, eat more local. I mean, the more healthy you are, the more you can get away with doing that. But eventually, it will. If you do it all the time, it'll catch up with you. It's like all the diseases and sicknesses out there.
So just to clarify on that, so summertime is hot, so you're wanting foods that are higher in deuterium, with fruit and more water soluble, more like fibery sweet potato.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just that was the time that it was grown. So that's the time that you want to eat it, basically.
Yeah.
Got it. And then wintertime, these fruits, these types of veggies that we're having in summer don't grow in winter, so just don't eat them. And so eating changing, and so going more higher fat, higher protein, lower carb through winter. Got it.
Right.
And then, and if you can, wintertime, have the cold showers, even if it's uncomfortable, or the cold exposure.
I love cold exposure.
Yeah, but Queensland's not cold.
Yeah, but I was jumping into. I jumped into my first like -4-degree ice bath.
When you're over in
day, so
Ohio and it's like negative, what is it? How cold is it there now?
It was 25 degrees Fahrenheit today.
So we have to Google that because we work in degrees.
Yeah.
So pretty much you could just go lay in the snow. I'd probably just do that.
Good luck.
It's really cold.
It's like, Japan, when it was freezing, it's like it's 3 degrees, 4 degrees.
All right, no, I can see that because literally the bar. So if that's 3 degrees here, the ice bath I had the other day, it was like a little temperature, and I put the temperature thing in there to test it, and it was -2.5 degrees, and then I jumped in that for 3 minutes. I was really proud of myself.
What's the best time to do in an ice bath? Is it a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes? What you can withstand?
And what temperature as well? Because some people are saying that like as long as it's about 10 degrees, then that should be okay, and not going too extreme like what I did.
Yeah, I mean, the colder it is, the less you need. Jack talks about the sweet spot being somewhere between 50 to 55 degrees. Obviously Fahrenheit, which I would absolutely love it. So all February I've had to use my sledgehammer to get in because I have to crack the ice. But yeah, so it doesn't feel. It feels it's a little harder when there's a bunch of ice around you because it's like piercing your skin and all that. So I prefer just sitting in 50-degree water. But
yeah.
Here I only get 50 to 55 degrees probably, I'd say 2 to 3 months out of the year. Otherwise, it's way hotter or it's way colder.
It's okay. So that's why I love the Japanese culture, the onsen, you know, the warm bath.
Onsen.
And then we jumped in, I like climbed the fence, jumped into the ice bath, and then I jumped back. Like that cold switch is really nice. And not like this lady here is negative 49 degrees
where she is
in Canada. So that's obviously a bit much. Yeah. So that's really interesting. And so yes, the eating different times of the year, depending on the temperature, depending on the seasons. Great reminder. Awesome.
That makes me feel a lot more okay with eating fruit. A little bit of fruit here,
yeah. Any other final, little tips on food before we wrap this up? It's incredibly insightful, and everyone's loving this in the group and things like this. So before we wrap it up around food and close it out.
Last thing is, like I said in my intro, I used to eat like 10 meals a day. So it was like every 90 minutes to 2 hours, which is absolutely horrible. And it's just pure bro science and bodybuilding magazine stuff. So typically you don't want to eat more than 3 meals per day to be healthy. So my typical day is usually 2 meals a day. So some days I'll completely fast, and some days it's 1, but it usually averages out to about 2 meals a day.
Awesome. So would 1 meal include like a smoothie? Like, can I just ask, like, what are your 2 meals? Like, what do you put into those 2 meals?
I will usually split my meals up. So I usually do a seafood DHA packed meal, and then I'll do a more saturated fat meal, because Jack talks about how like DHA and saturated fat shouldn't be consumed in the same meal because they compete with each other or something like that. I don't know the whole science or background with that. But that's typically what I'll do. I'll usually have a DHA meal and then a more saturated fat meal.
Good to know.
One final question here from Eva in the group. She goes, what if you are from a different continent? So she's from Sweden, far north, now living in Australia. Why would her mitochondria always be out of whack living in Australia, or does the mitochondria shift?
Adapt to the scenery.
Adapt, yeah.
Yeah, it should eventually adapt. There's the 23 in me that Dr. Cruz always talks about. Where you can actually test your mitochondrial haplotype. So you can, like, some people are mixed. So they say like people from Africa have like a coupled mitochondria, and then more Northern European people have a uncoupled mitochondria. So we can basically make more heat because it gets colder where we live. So we can basically survive the winter. But yeah, it should eventually adapt.
And this is interesting because we've got, like Eskimos eating just high fat all year round, and they're around the cold a whole lot as well. So they're healthy. You go to, different parts of the world, in Bali or other places that are near the equator, they're going to change their food, and they're near, warmer environments. So it's a completely, it's a really good reminder to start eating depending on where you are, knowing that your mitochondria can shift. I think depending on where your mother, because we get the mitochondria through the mother's strain, not the father's DNA. Is that right?
Yep. All through the mother.
So
based on then, your mom's from England, where she was born.
England.
My mom was born in Australia. Does that mean that our haplotypes are different and we should?
But I was born in South Africa.
So you were born in South Africa.
Born in Australia.
Mum's from England. Where was her mum from?
I think England was Ireland.
Because you were in. Yeah, isn't it crazy to think that you were in your grandmother's belly? Like the eggs were there, you were there.
That's just a weird thought.
It's crazy to think that it's like
why?
Back then. So. Anyway, so how do we know if our mother was from the Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere, do we have to change our habits depending on where
My dad was from Taiwan and my mom was from Ohio. So, yeah, I just basically still follow everything that Dr. Cruz teaches, and I've never felt better. So.
I think like the most key thing as well, anyone that is listening, because what we did when we first moved to South Africa from South Africa to Australia was in South Africa we were a lot more behind, like with fast food and all of the processed foods and things like that. Like we still have our milk, which is now illegal here in Australia. It comes straight from a cow and comes straight to our door. Like we still had a milk ban.
Unpasteurized,
yeah. And it was the same with our bread. Our bread wouldn't last for more than 24 hours. So all of our meats were super clean and everything else. When we first came over here, I was like the prissy little ballerina performer, came here, turned fat kid, like very quickly and rapidly, but because there was so much process and crap put into the food here, and they went through a different way of
processing the
food.
food.
Because it was more for like getting mass quantity as opposed to just doing quality. So I think like it's really important to ensure that wherever you are, you're making sure you're getting that quality food, that organic food sourced from that soil that you are standing on, and also like what you were mentioning before, coming from the same light as where you are.
Yep, absolutely.
Interesting.
I wish my parents did that.
It could have been a change in the sunlight that you had there too, hey? Depending on where you were in Australia and South Africa,
Maybe.
So tell us quickly about the challenges. So you've got the 34-day light challenge and the 47-day keto diet challenge.
Yes.
Tell us quickly about that. And yeah.
So the 34-day light challenge, I've got challenge number 3 that's going to be starting up March 1st, and basically it's just you've got a workbook and you've got like basically a guide that goes over a lot of the stuff that we talked about and then some, and basically you're just trying to change 1 or 2 things per week, and obviously I give you a list of things most important down to least important that you're going to see the biggest bang for your buck. And so yeah, that's starting up March 1st, but I mean people can enter anytime pretty much. 47-day ketogenic diet challenge, we typically do just 2 national challenges. So we did one day after Martin Luther King Day in January, and then also we'll do one after Memorial Day here in May. But people can join either challenge any time. I've tried to go through the ketogenic challenge, add more information about the light, and still need to do an update on the circadian nutrition. But my thoughts around keto, if you haven't obviously learned through our talking, is a little bit different than like the typical keto guy that will just tell you it's all about you got to keep your macros the same and all that stuff throughout the year and all that stuff. So yeah, both challenges are open and whatnot. So
so it's a live group. It's like you're working with them over a period of time, and
once you enter the challenge, you get all the resources. So if you do enter the light challenge, you get the keto challenge resources as well. But once you enter, basically you get all the resources. There's a private accountability Facebook group that I put you into. So you can check in through there. You can also just text me or email me any questions as you're going through it. So I try to help people and coach people as best I can through that.
Excellent.
And you adjust that obviously depending on where they are. Like if we're in Australia and if that's summertime for us, you'd adjust the eating regime and everything for us, or?
Well, I mean, it's just one manual. So basically, when you are just starting, basically, I want you to just basically get the basics down.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sounds
really
great.
cool.
So please, guys, reach out if you want to, really get, if you're in winter time right now and you want to jump into the keto diet, that would be the next step. Or if you're wanting to really tweak your light and learn the ins and outs with a workbook and a group of people that are doing it as well, which I think is the best way to do it. Yeah, definitely reach out to Jason. Somewhere around this video will be the links. And we really appreciate your time. This has given us a lot of aha moments and light bulbs that we will literally put into our life to help our health and well-being for our friends and family. So really appreciate your time, Jason. And are there any final comments that you want to share with us before we close it out?
Well, I always end my videos and everything with stay strong, stay positive, be the improvement warrior.
Love it.
Love it. Be strong. Keep improving.
Jinx.
What?
I said jinx.
Jinx. I love it. Thank you so much, Jace. That has been awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please reach out to him, add him on Facebook, on Twitter or Instagram. And we look forward to hearing the results from everybody as well. This stuff really works, guys. I think, reason why people aren't talking about it is because, big pharma or the big nutritional companies, they don't make money off the sunlight. They're not here to educate us on the sun to then sell a product or anything. You can't sell a product for the sun, maybe blue blockers or these red light panels, but there's nothing that's a consumable. So this is knowledge that we haven't been exposed to, and these are fundamentals. Like, I truly urge every single one of you to set this challenge in motion and see how this will shift every part of your life, not just the health aspect, but your relationships and your career and mindset and everything. It's all interlinked.
Yeah. And I also give everyone a challenge. And so, obviously Jason puts out his challenge of just trying to get up and experience the sunlight and, start to reset everything. Just really get the feeling of it, because I've seriously noticed a massive difference in the last month. And if anybody just send Zac a message, because I know none of y'all have me on Facebook anyway, but send Zac a message. And if you guys want support, I'm happy to support you. And I'm really good at holding people accountable to waking up. I become quite annoying, actually.
Wake up.
Yeah. I wake up.
Set the alarm.
Yeah. I wake Zac up very easily.
Slap.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for jumping on. And Jason, see you very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And we